The grand chamber was enormous. Ambassador Tajin stood in the center, feeling very small. Above him, holographic displays showed hundreds of alien faces. Some had scales. Some glowed. Some looked like living crystals. All of them were staring at him. Tajin kept his face calm. He had practiced this for years. Inside, his heart was pounding. This was the moment that would decide Earth's future. High Arbiter Velthox spoke first. The crystalline being's voice echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. Ambassador Tajin of Earth, you have come before this council many times. For 15 years you have asked for membership. For 15 years we have refused. Tajin said nothing. He knew when to stay quiet. Today we make our final decision, Velthox continued. Humanity will not join this council as equals. You are too young, too violent, too unpredictable. The other council members made sounds of agreement. Tajin noticed that some looked uncomfortable. They were the smaller species. The ones who knew what it felt like to be bullied. However, Velthox said, we cannot ignore you. Your species has spread to 12 star systems. You have ships. You have weapons. You are becoming a problem. Now Tajin felt a cold weight in his stomach. This was not going the way he hoped. Therefore, the council offers humanity a choice, Velthox announced. Submit to our authority. Give us control of your military forces. Accept permanent probationary status. Follow our rules. And if we refuse? Tajin asked quietly. The holographic displays changed. Now they showed warships. Hundreds of them. Massive vessels that made Earth's best ships look like toys. They hung in space like a metal storm, bristling with weapons. 500 warships, Velthox said, each one capable of destroying a planet. If you refuse, humanity will be quarantined to your solar system, forever. Any ship that leaves will be destroyed. Any signal that goes out will be blocked. You will be alone in the dark until your sun dies. The chamber was silent. Tajin could hear his own breathing. He looked at the warships on the displays. He thought about Earth. About the 8 billion people who trusted him to protect them. You have 30 days to decide, Velthox said. Choose wisely, Ambassador. Tajin nodded slowly. Then he spoke, his voice steady. I need 72 hours to prepare humanity's official response. Will the council grant this? Some of the council members laughed. Not with joy, but with contempt. They thought Tajin was funny. A tiny human asking for time as if he had any power here. Of course, Velthox said, sounding amused. Take your time, Ambassador. Think carefully about our generous offer. Tajin bowed. It was a formal gesture, respectful. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. His steps were measured, calm. He did not hurry. He did not run. He walked like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. As he reached the door, he paused. Without turning around, he spoke one more time. The Galactic Council has made its position very clear. Humanity will respond in kind. Then he left. The doors closed behind him with a heavy sound. Inside the chamber, Velthox watched the human go. Something about Tajin's last words bothered them, but they could not say why. It was just a human. What could humans possibly do? Tajin's ship left the council station quickly. Inside, he sat alone in his quarters, staring at the wall. His hands were shaking now. He let them shake. There was no one to see. For 15 years, he had been polite, patient, diplomatic. He had smiled at insults. He had accepted rejection with grace, all because he believed that eventually the council would see reason. He had been wrong. They did not want peace. They wanted control. They wanted humanity on its knees. Tajin opened a secure communication channel to Earth. The connection took a moment. Then faces appeared on his screen. These were the people he trusted most. Captain Mirai spoke first. She commanded Earth's newest warship, the Indomitable. How bad is it? Worse than we feared, Tajin said. They want us to surrender everything. Our military, our freedom, our future. Dr. Bora appeared next. She was a scientist who studied alien cultures. Did they give us any options? Submit or die, Tajin said simply. They showed me 500 warships. Made it very clear what happens if we refuse. Commander Hyun was the oldest of them. He had fought in wars before first contact. He had seen the worst of humanity, so they finally showed their true colors. What do we do? Tajin was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, harder. They want to see how dangerous we are. They think they can scare us with their ships and their threats. He looked at each of them through the screen. Let's show them what it really means to threaten humanity. Mirai smiled. It was not a happy smile. What did you have in mind? They think we're weak because we're young, because we die quickly, because our technology is primitive, Teijin said. They don't understand that these things don't make us weak. They make us desperate, and desperate humans are the most dangerous thing in the universe. Bora leaned forward. You want to threaten them back with what? They have 500 warships. We have maybe 50 ships that could even reach them. I'm not going to threaten them with ships, Teijin said. I'm going to threaten them with something far worse. I'm going to threaten them with humanity itself. Hyun understood first. His eyes widened. You want to use the old strategies. The ones from before we met the aliens? Exactly, Teijin said. The Council has lived in peace for thousands of years. They don't understand real war. They don't know what it means to fight when you have nothing left to lose. But we do, Mirai said softly. Yes, Teijin agreed. We do. Earth has fought wars that would give these aliens nightmares. We've done things that should be impossible. We've survived when we should have died. Not because we're strong. Because we refuse to quit. Bora looked worried. What exactly are you planning? Teijin's expression was grim. I'm going to send them a message. One message, 47 words, and those words are going to change everything. What will the message say? Hyun asked. Teijin smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The truth. The one thing the Council has never really understood about humanity. The thing that makes us different from every other species in the galaxy. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Then he spoke again, and his words were cold as space. We're already dead. We just haven't accepted it yet. And that makes us more dangerous than anything they can imagine. The others stared at him. They understood what he meant. Humans lived short lives compared to most aliens. Humans were fragile. Humans died easily. But that also meant humans had less to lose, less to fear. Get me everything, Teijin ordered. Every strategy from every war. Every weapon we've ever built. Every tactic we've ever used. I need to know exactly how to make the Council understand what it means to fight a species that knows it's going to die anyway. How long do we have? Mirai asked. 72 hours, Teijin said. Then I go back to the Council. And I deliver the message that will either save us or damn us. And if they don't listen? Bora asked quietly. Teijin looked at her steadily. Then we make sure they regret it. One way or another, the communication ended. Teijin sat alone again in his quarters. He thought about Earth, about the forests and oceans, about the cities full of people who just wanted to live their lives, about his wife and daughter gone now, killed in a stupid border skirmish years ago. He had nothing left to lose, and that, he realized, was exactly what made him the right person for this job. The Council wanted to know how dangerous humanity could be. They were about to find out. 1 month passed since the humans walked out. At first, the Council barely noticed. They were busy with other matters, other negotiations, other problems. But slowly a pattern began to emerge. A pattern of silence. Counselor Mira-sen was the first to bring it up at a council session. She stood in the center platform, her blue skin showing the worry she felt. Lyrians were empaths, able to sense emotions. Right now she sensed something wrong across the galaxy. Has anyone received any communication from human space? She asked the assembled council members. The chamber was quiet. Then delegates started checking their data pads and conferring with their aides. The answer came back from every species, no. No messages, no trade requests, no diplomatic protests, nothing. They're sulking, High Arbiter Velkoth said dismissively. Give them time. They'll realize their mistake and return. But Mira-sen was not convinced. Humans did not do silence. In her years of knowing them, they had always been loud, always been present. They argued and debated and protested, but they never went quiet. It's not just communication, a trade official reported. Human ports are closed. Every single one. Ships that approach are turned away by automated systems. No explanation given. Fleet Marshal Kren stood up, his massive form drawing attention. Our intelligence network in human space has gone dark, all of it. Every agent, every listening post, every spy satellite. Simultaneously. That level of coordination is not sulking. That is preparation. Preparation for what? Someone asked. I don't know, Kren admitted. And that worries me. The council ordered a full investigation. What they discovered over the following weeks was disturbing. First came the economic reports. Several major pharmaceutical companies reported that they could not get important medical compounds. Humans had been making these medicines. Without them, prices started rising. People started worrying. Then technology companies reported problems. Humans owned patents on quantum computing systems. Many council species used these systems, but now they could not get licenses. They could not get updates. They could not get support. The military reports were worst of all. Manufacturing costs for ships and weapons had increased by 15%. Why? Because humans had been producing advanced metals and composite materials cheaper and faster than anyone else. The council had other suppliers, but they were more expensive and slower. How did we not notice how much we depended on them? A council economist asked during a private briefing. Because they were quiet about it, another replied. They didn't brag. They didn't demand recognition. They just worked hard and became essential, and we never noticed until they were gone. The council tried to make contact. They sent diplomatic ships to human borders. Every ship was turned back by automated defense platforms. The message was always the same, delivered in emotionless machine voices. Human space is closed to Galactic Council vessels until further notice. Violation will be considered an act of war. Fleet Marshal Kren wanted to force through the blockade, but his military analysts brought him troubling news. The border defenses had tripled in strength. Sensor scans showed hundreds of new platforms, new weapons, new ships. How did they build so many so fast? Kren demanded. They didn't build them fast, his chief analyst said. They built them over years. They've been preparing for this. They hid their true military capacity from us. Everything we thought we knew about their strength was wrong. The intelligence failures were even more embarrassing. The Council's spy agencies had thought they had hundreds of agents in human space. Now they realized every single one had been discovered and either captured or expelled. Decades of intelligence work, gone in a single day. They let us think we were watching them. The intelligence director admitted to a closed council session. The whole time they were watching us. They knew about every spy, every listening device, every surveillance program. They fed us exactly what they wanted us to know. For how long? Velkoff demanded. Years, maybe a decade. They've been planning this since long before the peace talks began. Then came worse news. The Kellen Confederacy, a small species with 3 star systems, announced they were leaving the council. Their representative gave a short speech that stung worse than any insult. We joined this council hoping for fair treatment, the Kellen representative said. Instead, we found a hierarchy where old species rule and young species obey. Humanity showed us there is another path. They showed us that we don't have to accept being treated as inferiors. We're taking that path. We're leaving. Within days, 2 more species followed. Small species, yes. Not powerful or influential. But they were leaving. The council was fracturing for the first time in centuries. The High Council met in emergency session. The debate was fierce. Velkoff wanted to show strength. We must make an example. Economic sanctions against any species that leaves. Military pressure if needed. We cannot let children dictate terms to us. Mirasen argued for reconciliation. We underestimated them. We underestimated how much they contributed to our economy. We underestimated their military strength. And we underestimated how much other species respected them. We need to bring them back to the negotiating table. On better terms this time. Kren wanted military action. Every day we wait, they grow stronger. Our intelligence suggests they're building alliances with non-council species. They're constructing new ships and weapons. If we're going to act, we should act now while we still have clear superiority. But the council could not agree. For the first time in living memory, they were paralyzed by indecision. Different factions pulled in different directions. Nothing was resolved. On Earth, in a secured military facility, Commander Park reviewed the intelligence reports. She read about the Council's confusion, their failed attempts to contact humanity, their growing panic. They're starting to understand, she said to Dr. Choi, who had come to review the reports with her. Understanding is different from accepting, Dr. Choi replied. They understand they miscalculated, but they haven't accepted that they were wrong. Not yet. Ambassador Kang was not on Earth. He was traveling between non-council worlds, meeting with leaders of independent species, building relationships, forming alliances, creating what he called the Coalition of Independent Worlds. 17 species had already expressed interest. Some were former council members who had left. Others had never joined in the first place. All of them were interested in an alternative to council rule. Young Huang traveled with Kang, learning and helping. His idealism had been shattered by the Council's treatment of humanity. But he was building a new kind of hope. Hope for something better. Do you think they'll come after us? Huang asked Kang during a long flight between systems. Maybe, Kang said, but it will cost them more than they expect. And that cost will make other species think twice about staying loyal to the Council. Is that what we want? To break the Council? No, Kang said. We want them to change. But if they won't change, then yes, we want them to break. Because a system that treats beings as inferiors based on their age deserves to break. Back on the Council's flagship, Mira-sen could not sleep. She kept thinking about the humans, about how quiet they had gone, about how thoroughly they had prepared, about how easily they had walked away. She realized something that terrified her. The walkout had not been emotional. It had not been a tantrum or a bluff. It had been a strategy, a carefully planned, perfectly executed strategy. And if the walkout was planned, what else had the humans planned? She tried to warn the other council members. But Velkoth would not listen. Kren thought she was being paranoid. The others were too busy arguing among themselves. The silence from human space continued. And with each passing day, more species started asking themselves a dangerous question. If humanity could walk away from the Council, why couldn't they? 3 months after the humans left, the truth finally came out. It came from an unexpected source. Admiral Brektor of the Horvathi Navy requested an emergency meeting with the Council's Military Oversight Committee. The Horvathi were known for their military strength. They had been warriors for 10,000 years. If anyone understood military power, it was them. So when Admiral Brektor said he had important information about humanity's military capabilities, everyone listened. The committee room was packed. Fleet Marshal Kren sat at the head of the table. High Arbiter Velkoth attended personally, which was rare. Counselor Mira-sen was there too, along with military leaders from a dozen species. Admiral Brektor stood at the presentation platform. His armor gleamed under the lights. He looked uncomfortable, which was unusual for a Horvathi warrior. For the past 3 years, he began, I have been working with human military forces. The Council assigned me to evaluate their combat capabilities, to see if they could integrate into Council fleet operations. I need to share what I learned because it changes everything we think we know about humanity. He activated a holographic display. Numbers and charts filled the air. We estimated that humanity has about 3,000 combat ships, Brektor said. That estimate is wrong. The real number is closer to 12,000. Shocked silence filled the room. 12,000? Kren said. That's impossible. Where are they hiding them? Everywhere, Brektor replied. Hidden shipyards in uninhabited systems. Underground facilities on remote moons. Automated construction platforms in deep space. They've been building ships for decades in places we never bothered to look, because we assumed they were too young and too weak to be worth watching carefully. The numbers on the display changed, showing comparative analysis. Their ships are smaller than ours on average, Brektor continued, but they are not weaker. In combat simulations, human vessels performed better than expected. They use tactics we don't anticipate. They take risks we consider reckless. They adapt faster than any species I've studied. Tactics can be learned, Velkoth said. Experience will teach them caution. You don't understand, Brektor said. They don't want to learn caution. Their recklessness is deliberate. They call it acceptable risk. They train for it. They plan for it. In a battle, they will do things we would never consider. That makes them unpredictable. And unpredictable enemies are the most dangerous kind. More data appeared. Manufacturing statistics. Resource allocation. Industrial capacity. Human industrial capacity is approximately 40% of the Council's total output, Brektor said. Think about that. They control less than 2% of Council territory, but they produce 40% as much as the entire Council combined. How extreme automation, efficient resource use, and artificial intelligence systems at levels we have traditionally avoided. AI is dangerous, someone objected. It can turn against its creators. Humans don't share that fear, Brektor said. Or rather, they accept the risk because the benefits are so great. Their manufacturing is twice as efficient as ours because machines do most of the work. He paused, letting the information sink in. Then he showed the final analysis. Could we defeat humanity in a war? Brektor asked. Yes, the Council has superior numbers and more territory. But the cost would be catastrophic. Conservative estimates suggest we would lose 30 to 40% of the Council fleet in the first year. Recovery would take decades, and that assumes other factors remain constant, which they won't. Explain, Velkoth demanded. The moment we go to war with humanity, other species will see opportunity, Brektor said. Member species already unhappy with the Council will withdraw rather than fight. Some might even join humanity. Border conflicts will flare up. Pirates and raiders will become bold. We would be committing our forces to a major war while our entire structure becomes unstable. Fleet Marshal Kren stood up. Admiral, your assessment is too pessimistic. Yes, humans are stronger than we thought, but we are still stronger. We have experience. We have unity. Brektor looked at his superior officer. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. Marshal, I am Horvathi. My people have glorified warfare for 10,000 years. I have studied military history and strategy my entire life, and I am telling you that war with humanity would be the costliest mistake in Council history. Not because we would lose, but because winning would cost more than victory is worth. The room fell silent. A Horvathi admiral arguing against war was like a fish arguing against water. It was unthinkable. Then the chief economic analyst was called to present. Her report was just as disturbing. The economic damage has already reached 2.3 trillion credits, she said. Projections suggest it will hit 15 trillion within a year. But the real problem is not the money. It's the supply chains. She showed a complex web of interconnections, trade routes, manufacturing dependencies, resource flows. 17 critical supply chains have been disrupted, she continued. We never realized how integrated human commerce had become. They weren't just participants in our economy. They were foundational to several key sectors: medical supplies, advanced technology, manufacturing materials, entertainment, education, food production in some regions. Replacing their contributions will take years and cost far more than we anticipated. How did we not know this? Velkoth demanded. Because they were quiet about it, she said. They didn't advertise their importance. They just worked efficiently and became indispensable while we weren't paying attention. The intelligence director was the last to present. His report was perhaps the most embarrassing. Every significant intelligence asset we had in human space was either a double agent or had been compromised, he admitted. We thought we understood their capabilities. We understood nothing. They fed us exactly what they wanted us to see. They've been preparing for this scenario for at least a decade, possibly longer. This is unacceptable, Velkoth shouted. How can an entire intelligence apparatus be fooled by a species we considered primitive? Because we underestimated them, the director said simply. We assumed they were like us. We assumed they would behave according to patterns we understand. But humans don't think like we do. They're more paranoid, more careful, more willing to plan for worst cases. While we were confident in our superiority, they were preparing for the day we might prove them wrong about our fairness. After all the presentations, the committee sat in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. The young species they had dismissed as children had been playing a completely different game all along. Counselor Mirasen finally spoke. We need to reopen negotiations, on their terms if necessary. Every day we delay, they grow more distant and we grow weaker. Velkoth shook his head. I will not bow to children having a tantrum. This is not a tantrum, Admiral Brektor said. This is strategy, and it's working. But Velkoth refused to accept it. He had spent 300 years maintaining council authority. He would not admit that he had been wrong. The meeting ended without resolution. The council remained divided, and while they argued, humanity continued building their alternative. The coalition of independent worlds was growing. 23 species had joined. More were expressing interest, and everyone was watching to see what the council would do next. On Earth, Dr. Choi read the intelligence reports about the council meeting. She smiled. They know the truth now, she said. Let's see if they can accept it. 6 months after the walkout, everything came to a head. The Kellen Confederacy, one of the first species to leave the council, was suddenly attacked. The Moravian Empire claimed that Kellen worlds had historically belonged to them. Ancient treaties, they said, gave them rights to those systems. The council had always ignored these claims before. But now, with the council weakened and divided, the Moravians saw an opportunity. 3 Moravian battle groups jumped into Kellen space without warning. They expected an easy victory. The Kellen military was small, poorly equipped, and inexperienced. What the Moravians found instead was a complete surprise. Kellen ships fought with tactics they had never used before: aggressive maneuvers, coordinated strikes, willingness to take damage to achieve objectives. Their weapons were more powerful than they should be, their shields stronger, their response faster. Within hours, all 3 Moravian battle groups were destroyed or crippled. The survivors retreated in shock. How had the weak Kellen military become so strong so fast? The answer became clear when sensor logs were analyzed. Kellen ships were equipped with human weapons. Kellen officers had been trained by human military advisors. Kellen defenses were built using human technology and human tactics. Humanity had not abandoned the species who left the Council. They had protected them. The Moravian Empire demanded that the Council intervene. They wanted military support to crush the Kellen rebellion and punish human interference. The Council was forced to make a choice: help the Moravians and risk war with humanity, or refuse and look weak. Fleet Marshal Kren made the choice for them. Without waiting for authorization, he sent a battle fleet to Kellen space. 350 ships heavily armed, with orders to restore Council authority by force. Kren believed a show of overwhelming strength would end the crisis. He believed humans would back down when faced with superior force. He believed this was the moment to restore Council dominance. He was wrong about everything. When Kren's fleet arrived in Kellen space, they found 3 human battle groups waiting. 200 ships arranged in defensive formation around Kellen worlds, and leading them was Commander Park Hajian herself, aboard the human flagship. Kren opened a communication channel. "Commander Park, withdraw your forces immediately. This is Council business. Human interference will not be tolerated." Park's response was calm and cold. "Marshal Kren, you are in the sovereign territory of a coalition member world without invitation. You have 10 minutes to withdraw. After that, we will consider your presence an act of war against the coalition of independent worlds." Kren felt rage building. "You cannot threaten me. The Council fleet outnumbers you nearly 2 to 1. "Numbers are not everything," Park replied. "You have 10 minutes. 9 minutes and 40 seconds now." For 8 minutes, 2 massive fleets faced each other. Weapons were charged. Shields at maximum. Every ship ready for battle. The galaxy held its breath. Kren's tactical officers were running scenarios. The results were not good. Yes, the Council fleet had more ships, but the humans had better positioning. They were defending prepared positions with support from Kellen ground installations and orbital platforms. More troubling were the sensor readings. Long-range scans detected dozens of unidentified ships on the edge of the system. Coalition reinforcements ready to jump in if needed. Kren might have numerical advantage now, but that could change instantly. And then there was the bigger problem. Kren had acted without authorization. If he started a war here, he would be responsible. Not the Council, him. And if the war went badly, he would be blamed. At minute 9, Kren gave the order. "All ships withdraw. We are leaving the system." It was the right tactical decision, but it was a strategic disaster. The Council had blinked. The entire galaxy had watched it happen. The message was clear. Humanity and its coalition were willing to fight, and the Council was not. When news reached the Council chambers, chaos erupted. High Arbiter Velkoth was furious. He demanded Kren's immediate removal from command. But the Horvathi delegation threatened to leave the Council if their marshal was punished. Other species used the crisis to push their own agendas. Old conflicts flared up. Ancient grudges resurfaced. The careful diplomatic balance that had held the Council together for millennia was breaking down. Councillor Mirasen watched the arguing with growing horror. "We're destroying ourselves," she said to anyone who would listen. "Humanity didn't defeat us. We're defeating ourselves, and they're just watching it happen." Then humanity broke their silence. Ambassador Kang delivered a message that was broadcast across all communication channels in known space. Everyone heard it. "Every species. Every world. 6 months ago you told us to accept our place," Kang said. "You treated us as children requiring supervision. You dismissed our concerns, ignored our contributions, and insulted our dignity. We left your table not in anger but in clarity." His words were simple but powerful. "We saw what you could not, that your council is built on hierarchy, not partnership, on ancient privilege, not mutual respect. You ruled the galaxy for millennia and you ruled it well. But times change. The galaxy is larger than you realized, more complex than your old systems can manage. He paused, letting the words sink in. We didn't leave to destroy you. We left to build something better, and we invite any species who shares that vision to join us. Not as subjects, not as junior partners, but as equals. The choice is yours, the message ended. But its impact was immediate. Within a week, 12 more species announced they were leaving the Council. 3 of them were founding members, species that had been part of the Council since its creation. Their departure was not just significant, it was catastrophic. The Council was not just losing members, it was losing legitimacy. It was losing its claim to represent galactic civilization. On a coalition world, Dr. Choi met with other coalition leaders. Someone asked the question everyone was thinking. Will the Council fight us now? Will they try to force us back? Dr. Choi considered carefully before answering. Some will want to fight, but wanting to fight and being able to fight are different things. The Council's strength came from unity. We broke that unity. Now they're learning what they truly are without it. A collection of frightened, aging empires wondering when their time will run out. Young Huang, who had grown much less idealistic over the past months, asked a different question. Did we do the right thing? Walking away instead of trying to change them from within? Ambassador Kang answered that one. Change from within only works if those in power want to change. The Council didn't, they wanted us to change, to accept being less than them. Walking away was not about giving up. It was about refusing to play a rigged game. Commander Park had a more practical concern. We need to prepare. The Council is wounded and confused, but they're not dead. If they decide to fight, we need to be ready. We are ready, one of the other coalition representatives said. That's why they backed down. Being ready and staying ready are different things, Park replied. We can't get comfortable. Not yet. Back on the Council flagship, High Arbiter Velkoth sat alone in his private chambers. For 300 years, he had led the Council with absolute confidence. Now for the first time he felt uncertainty. The humans had not just left. They had shown dozens of species that leaving was possible. That life outside the Council could be better. That age and tradition did not automatically mean wisdom and justice. The galaxy was changing, and Velkoth did not know if the Council could change with it, or if it even should. 9 months after the walkout, the galaxy had completely transformed. The Galactic Council that once had 47 member species now had only 29, and several of those were openly considering leaving. The coalition of independent worlds had grown to 36 members. Humanity remained at its philosophical center, but deliberately avoided becoming its ruler. They had learned from the Council's mistakes. Power shared was power that lasted. Then came the shock that shattered what remained of the old order. High Arbiter Velkoth received a private communication from his homeworld. From the Threxian Council of Elders, the governing body of his own species, the message was brief and devastating. Threxa was leaving the Galactic Council. Velkoth read the message 3 times, unable to believe it. Threxa was a founding species. They had helped create the Council millennia ago. He himself had spent 3 centuries leading it. And now his own people were abandoning it. The reasoning was cold and practical. The Threxian elders explained that remaining in the Council had become a liability. Economic projections showed that Council members would face decades of stagnation. Meanwhile, coalition species were experiencing growth and innovation. We chose to build the Council millennia ago because it served our interests, the message stated. Now it no longer does. We do not make decisions based on sentiment. We make them based on logic. And logic says the Council's time has passed. For Velkoth, this was more than a political setback. It was a personal betrayal. Everything he had worked for, everything he believed in, his own people had judged and found wanting. In desperation, Velkoth made one final attempt to save the Council. He proposed a grand military campaign. They would forcibly reintegrate the defector species and crush humanity's coalition. It would be expensive and difficult, but it would restore Council authority. Fleet Marshal Kren supported the proposal. Several hardline species agreed. But when the vote came, the result was crushing. Only 7 species voted in favor. 15 voted against, 7 abstained. The message was clear. The Council no longer had the unity or will for such an action. They could barely agree on anything anymore. let alone a major war. Counselor Mirison stood to speak after the vote. Her voice was sad but steady. "We built an empire of ancient wisdom and careful order," she said. "It was beautiful. It was stable. But it was also stagnant. We forgot that the universe doesn't reward age. It rewards adaptation. Humanity understood that. We didn't. This is our failure, not theirs." On a coalition world, Ambassador Kang gave a speech that would be remembered for generations. He spoke to representatives from all 36 coalition members. "We didn't leave the council to destroy it," he said. "We left to prove that another way was possible." The council believed that order required hierarchy, that wisdom required age, that peace required submission. "We believe differently." His words were simple but powerful. "We believe that true order comes from free association, that wisdom comes from diverse perspectives, that peace comes from mutual respect, not imposed authority. Today, 36 species have chosen this path. Tomorrow, I believe most of the galaxy will join us." He paused, looking at the assembled representatives. "Not because we conquered them, but because we showed them something better." Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. Fleet Marshal Kren requested a private meeting with Commander Park. The two military leaders met on neutral ground, both wary, both armed. Kren spoke first. For a Horvathi warrior, his words were surprisingly humble. "My people have glorified strength for 10,000 years, he said. "We built our civilization on the principle that the strong should rule. And then you humans showed us something we didn't understand. That true strength isn't about domination, it's about conviction." Park listened without interrupting. "You were willing to stand alone against the entire council." Kren continued. "That took more courage than any battle I've ever fought. My people respect courage above all else. We respect you." Park's response was measured. "Marshal, we weren't trying to be brave. We were trying to be free." "There's a difference," Kren nodded slowly. "Yes, and that's a lesson my people needed to learn." Within a month, the Horvathi announced their withdrawal from the council and their application to join the coalition. It was a stunning development. The council's primary military power had abandoned them. With Threx's departure and the failed military vote, Velkoth's position became impossible. He was forced to resign as High Arbiter after 300 years of service. Before leaving office, he sent one final message to Ambassador Kang. It was brief and private. "You won," Velkoth wrote, "not through strength of arms, but through strength of principle. I spent 300 years maintaining order, and you destroyed it in 9 months. I hated you for it. Now I wonder if you did the galaxy a service." The message continued. "Perhaps we held on too long to something that should have evolved generations ago. I don't know if I'll live to see your new order succeed, but I hope for the sake of species I'll never meet, that it does." It was as close to an apology as someone like Velkoth could manage. The coalition held its first formal summit on Axis Prime, the same world where the original peace talks had collapsed. 41 species gathered to create the framework for their new galactic order. The debates were heated and passionate. Every species had different needs, different concerns, different visions, but they debated as equals. No one sat in inner circles based on their age. No one's voice mattered more than another's. Dr. Choi watched the proceedings with satisfaction. She whispered to Huang, "This is the moment. Either we build something truly different, or we become the very thing we opposed." The summit resulted in what they called the Axis Accords, a founding document that emphasized sovereignty, mutual defense, free trade, and dispute resolution through negotiation. It was messy and complex, full of compromises, but it was also the most democratic interstellar governance structure the galaxy had ever seen. The old Galactic Council did not disappear entirely. 12 species chose to remain, forming a smaller regional organization. Under new leadership, they accepted their reduced role. They would govern their own space in their own way, but they would no longer claim to rule the galaxy. Counselor Mirison, now the High Arbiter of this smaller council, sent a message to the coalition. "We're not your enemies," she said. "We're simply species who prefer the old ways. We ask for respect and peaceful coexistence. Perhaps our paths will diverge. Perhaps they'll converge again someday. But let's not repeat the mistake of thinking there's only one correct way to organize civilized society." On Earth, the 3 humans who had walked out of the peace talks gathered for a private conversation. Ambassador Kang, Commander Park, and Dr. Choi sat together, reflecting on what they had achieved. "We walked out thinking we'd face isolation and hardship," Kang said. "Instead, we sparked a revolution," Park nodded. "We were prepared for war. I'm glad we got peace instead." Dr. Choi had the final word. "We didn't change the galaxy alone. We just asked a question that needed asking. Why do we accept being treated as inferiors?" Turns out a lot of species were wondering the same thing. They just needed someone to go first. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, understanding that the hard work was just beginning. Building a new galactic order would be more difficult than destroying an old one. But for the first time in humanity's short history among the stars, they were doing it as equals, not as children requiring supervision, not as inferiors begging for recognition, but as free beings, building a future worthy of the price they had been willing to pay for dignity. And across the galaxy, that future was just beginning.